Turn on the channels now, Everest.
Yeah, I already did. So they should be
Okay.
all going.
Okay, excellent. All right. Then we'll start letting folks in.
I think it's up on my
Hey,
YouTube channel as well. So it seems
great.
to be working. Yeah.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. Did you want that direct link, Henrik, or
No, it's fine for now. Yeah.
it's fine for now? Okay, excellent. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the slight delay. My computer has been being obstinate lately with my Bluetooth headphones, and yeah, it is really causing trouble with getting the meeting started. So I'll have to fix that soon. Um, but welcome. And this is the part where we kind of simmer and settle into this program, Piano Tech Radio Hour. And we're doing some fun special stuff today. If you are watching this live stream on YouTube on a channel called Sonata Secrets, that is a very unique happenstance. We have decided to simulcast this live stream both to our own YouTube channel as well as our guests today's YouTube channel. And so if you're over there, I'll let you know a couple of things. One, there's some links in the description of this live stream for you to find out more about the program that we're doing today and what's behind it. And also, if you are actually catching this live and not recorded, we're going to share a link either in the chat or the description of the stream that will allow you to jump on the Zoom call with us. So you could actually kind of be here even closer, potentially interact and engage in the Zoom call, have a little bit more intimate experience. No pressure, but if you'd love to do that, we'd love to have you. And so look out for that registration link. We'll put that in the chat for folks to join us. And usually I take a couple minutes to sort of let people shuffle into the Zoom room. But basically, at this point, we've used up some of that time that we used to get started anyway. So I think we're probably at a good number of participants now. We can start introducing the program and tell you what's going on today. And so, we kind of do an official introduction to introduce the program, and we say, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. What we do here is we gather every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This could include manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments. And of course, we have our foundation of piano technicians. Our mutual goal here is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. This program, Piano Tech Radio Hour, is part of Piano Technicians Masterclasses. You subscribe to just this program for only $16 a month. You'll get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as the archival recordings of about 200 episodes in our member area. It's about 4 years worth of content that you can access easily in our member area at any time. You can join Piano Tech Radio Hour at bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. And then before we introduce our guest today, just to raise your awareness around some other things that's going on with us. In particular, we have the podcast, the Piano Tech Radio Hour podcast. So these video episodes come out as audio-only episodes on the podcast. We both release archival episodes from about 2 years ago, as well as more recent episodes that are about a month behind the original recording date of those episodes. So go to pianotechradio.com to learn about the podcast and subscribe. And then if you want to know more about what's in our Piano Technicians Masterclass member area in the vault, you can check out our new blog that's been out for a couple of months, pianotechniciansmasterclass.substack.com. And pretty often, try to do it weekly or every couple of weeks, we're putting out an article that is based heavily on one of our master classes in the private member area. And remember, this is a higher level of education and in-depth interactive information than you get on the radio hour. This is really to up level your professional expertise. However, if you just go to the public blog for free, you can get a lot of insights as to what's in those classes. And if you really like what you hear, you can go actually subscribe and check out the archival information. You can also follow us on social media at Piano Tech Masterclass on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. And then you can check out our most recent masterclass, which is on studying grand piano action geometry with Dean Rayburn. And you can sign up to watch the recording, pianotechniciansmasterclass.com/Dean-Rayburn-2024. Dean's been in the industry for like 40 years. He's built, one of the most amazing softwares for piano tuning, in addition to now being a professional action manufacturer and customizer. Really great information. And we'll also share some information about our guest today once we get into the episode a little bit. But let's introduce that guest. This is Henrik Kilhamn. I'm trying to say the Swedish pronunciation of it.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So I've given away that he's Swedish. He's a concert pianist, chamber musician, and accompanist. He's based in Gothenburg, Sweden. He works regularly with the Gothenburg Opera House Orchestra, as well as the Gothenburg Symphony Choir and Vocal Ensemble, as a collaborative pianist in professional and educational settings. He plays solo recitals regularly around Western Sweden. In 2019, just a handful of years ago, he founded the YouTube channel Sonata Secrets, which has now accumulated over 40,000 followers and 2.5 million views. In videos on the channel, he gives enthusiastic explanations for how classical music works with an analytical perspective while presenting and playing the pieces. The videos are accessible to listeners who might not be as familiar with classical music, and it has become a resource for piano players of all levels. Henrik, thank you for joining us. What is it, evening time in Sweden right now?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Thanks so much for having me on, Ethan. I appreciate it. Invitation.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure to get to know you. We've had some conversations preliminary to this this broadcast, and I'll just say up front here, I mean, I'm always really appreciative when we can share something that's culturally enriching, that goes deep into the details of something very special and cultural, like classical music, and people are getting excited about it. To have lots of followers tuning in and checking out what you're doing, it's really wonderful to know about that. And I'm a music nerd. I'm a music theory nerd, and I can nerd out about all kinds of chord changes and rhythmic changes and motifs and all this stuff. But it's so wonderful to know that I've got a fellow community of those folks that can resonate with these type of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, chord changes and stuff. I never run out of material to do videos on. That's the thing.
Yeah, and if you ever run out, you can always go bleed into microtonal scales, and you've got an infinite number more chord changes to work with.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so welcome here. I'd love to just we like to lay a foundation oftentimes with our guests. Tell us a little bit about, how you got started with music and piano in general, and how that might connect with where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I pretty standard piano education, I guess, for someone who continues as long as I have. I started when I was 6 years old with the Suzuki method, an old lady, local. And I got another teacher when I was 12 who was really good and inspiring. So I auditioned and got into the music academy after I finished school at 18. And then I did 1 year on the bachelor program in performance there. But then I did a year on an engineering program for like mathematics, because I hadn't really committed. It was like I have to audition and I got in, so I had to give it a try. But then like in my family, it would be a more traditional route to do that type of education where I come from academics and no musicians really. But then after a year of that, I could kind of compare, and I said, piano is much more fun and the music path. So if that's a viable option, I should definitely do that. And it seemed that I could do it. So then I committed. So I did like the full track of education after that. Finished a bachelor, and then I did 1 year exchange studies in UK, north of UK, Newcastle. And then I went back to Gothenburg for a master's. And then I had kind of 2 years when I was half in the academy and half outside. I worked a bit at the student union for a year. But somewhere around here, 2015, 16, I cut the ties as well. And I've been working as a musician on freelance basis since then. So like, is it 8 years now, I think? So it's generally consists of 3 things, where the Sonata Secrets is the third that's come up since 19. So that's 5 years now. And the other 2 are working as an accompanist and collaborative pianist, as you said so nicely in the beginning. Work with a lot of students and choirs and some singers. It's like the main thing. Little bit of orchestra piano with those orchestras. And then the other side is like the flip side, the projects that I'm really passionate about myself. So like I do a big program per year, maybe of recital programs, some sonatas, and play some concerts in smaller venues in Gothenburg. Occasional piano concerto, like last year I had the nice invitation to go back to Newcastle and play Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto with the amateur orchestra there. So it's a musical highlight from last year. But then these 2 things fit really well together. So all this repertoire that I do, like in concerts, I do videos on them. And that's how it started. All the repertoire that I had played, I started to do videos on. So that's pretty general, the situation. And then, of course, COVID was a part of this when it came in.
Yeah, and you started actually before COVID, right? Kind of posting videos and getting started with this stuff, which is interesting. Similar to what we were doing. It was back in 2017 when I was like, oh yeah, we should be using modern technology to spread education throughout the globe. And, at that point, we had some hardcore fans, and we definitely couldn't have started this organization without our core fans. But there were a lot of people who were like, I don't know, I don't get it. I don't need it. I'll do things in person. And then of course the pandemic hit, and it was like, oh, I get it now. Which was like that for a lot of things. I would like to just dive in here. I guess when you started the YouTube channel, I'm sure you had a concept. You probably built upon it and modified it. I'm curious how you've thought about this process, right? Has it changed a lot? Do you have like kind of like a model or like a template for how you've done these? How much thought did you kind of feel like you had to put in before you got started versus it's sort of naturally evolving how you present these things? How do you put the presentation style together?
Yeah, so I can start when it started for me, like how I first came about it. So, I mean, it's ended up being this kind of package of things that I do, some background and the context of the pieces, and then I play and I try to connect the analysis and structure and theory. But also, like, the playing is very integral to it, to come really close to the music. And when I started, it was a couple of things that I had been going around in the back of my head for a couple of years, I think. And one of them was that it's a bit frustrating with the elusive nature of live music, because you do it and then it's no evidence that it's ever existed except for in the memory of the audience. And I mean, that's also what's unique and great about it. So it's a paradox. But I kind of wanted to do some documentation of it, and not just my playing, to do like a music recording only. That's one thing. That's also important to do, and have it pure music in that way, but also like my understanding of it or my interpretation of it. And that's one thing. And then another thing is, like, I did these kind of presentations at when I did some concerts, recitals in these small venues in Swedish, and I always got good feedback from the audience that they appreciated doing that, like take some context. So I guess I had some way of thinking that made sense to other people, because it always made sense to me to do that. And I guess I have to thank a professor at the academy who actually, it's Gothenburg is an Academy of Music and Drama. So we have some acting programs as well. And it's a professor from the drama side who worked with all the music students to get comfortable presenting on stage. So I think I got a lot from her, Gunilla Gårdfeld.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and then I kind of looked around at the digital world this was in 1819 when I did the first pilots, and I launched in May 19. So I had kind of built up done a few videos, and then I launched them closer together. But it just felt like the trend of the digital world is so much potential in there. And YouTube is a great platform. I think the reach is incredible over the world to make connections like this. And also monetization is a thing that's, I get a little bit of income, not much really, but a little bit. And also Patreon. I don't know if there is any Patreon who found the registration link here to this call, but anyway, I gained some Patreons over the years that works very well together, I think. And in general, this is a just great trend for the digital environment. And finally, I also had some experience working with video from my youth years. We did recorded films with a group of friends. Like we had seen The Godfather was like the best movie ever. So we did like gangster movies.
Oh, nice.
Friends. So I
you
got
gotta
really
post some of the. Can you post some of those to your YouTube channel? I want to see that.
think there are
gangster
some
movies.
fragment of it left, but I'm not going to share that.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Once you've earned it. I feel like famous people, once they've shown like how amazing they can be, they can earn, showing some childhood project or something like that. That's kind of silly. But that's interesting. I think one thing that stood out to me that you said a little bit back is that you're working on these pieces sort of anyways, right? And then you're sort of developing this content around them. And I care a lot about education and where it's going and sort of keeping track of how people can learn and grow and change. And it's an interesting pattern that I've noticed. I've been doing a lot in podcasting, even in domains beyond this. And something like what you're doing, like a media type of program or like a podcast, it's an incredible opportunity to learn, right? And to deepen your knowledge of things. We do master classes, we have to do a master class every month. We're committed to doing it. And so just by the nature of that, I'm going to participate in a master class on action geometry or participate in a master class on voicing or something like this. And it provides or meet a person like you and learn more deeply about sonatas and musical analysis. And so I really think this is it's an educational model that I think people don't realize, that when you start to create content, it becomes a way to almost, do a PhD in whatever topic you're sort of creating content on. So speaking of that, you've written a paper quite extensively, just kind of about your philosophies of music. And I'm trying to remember what the title of the paper is. It like How Music Works, or what's the title?
Exactly how music works.
Wonderful.
I guess you'd call it a paper. It's not really defined. I have it up as like a extensive blog post on my webpage, sonatasecrets.com. You can read all the text there. Then I also have it in a formatted version as an ebook, whatever that means.
I'm going to do a screen share, and you can describe it a little bit, but I'd love to kind of show people what we're talking about to be interesting.
Yeah, but I'll start talking. So it kind of comes from the same well of interest and inspiration as the videos that I do, but the videos are always like applied to a specific piece. So I look at all the stuff in the music that happens there. But then if you ask the question, okay, what is it about this particular place in this piece? Why does it behave this way and work well in this context? And then if you ask what's specific about that piece and what's true in general, and like for a style, those are interesting questions. So this paper is kind of trying to take this, put it all into a model to see. And it's really been like what you said about if you learn by doing. I started writing, didn't really know what it would come of it, but I've had an interest of reading about this kind of aesthetic philosophies and theories. And somehow I felt that I needed a model for it, firmer ground, philosophical ground, what I speak to in the videos. I mean, the videos are more practical also, like it's not, so this is, it's more theoretical. Yeah.
I would love to maybe hop on your channel really quickly. We didn't exactly plan this ahead, but I think we can impromptu do it. What I would like to do is kind of share the screen here, and as always, folks, if you have problem seeing or hearing something, just let me know and we'll fix it. I can't always tell how it sounds to you, but I'm going to share the screen, and I'm doing a. Are you seeing
Looks
YouTube
a little
channel,
bit
guys?
pixely. That's better.
Better? Okay, got it. And then what I'm curious is there any, of course, some of these are 20 minutes long or something like that, but I'm curious, is there anything you could think of among what we're looking at here where we might be interesting to kind of watch a clip or check out a small segment of something?
Yeah, sure. I can show you, if you take the latest one about the list piece.
List visionary. Okay.
Yeah, we can do like 30 seconds in the beginning and then jump to like 6 minutes in.
Yeah, we'll get this. We'll let this ad play through, of course.
Yeah.
No,
that would be a good like introduction,
our...
like a 2-minute thing where I talk about the first chord in that piece. That's the latest.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. The romantic ideal of the suffering artist, a young soul experiencing emotion. How do you illustrate musically the romantic ideal of the suffering artist, a young soul experiencing emotions to the fullest, from tender vulnerability to ecstatic joy, but also intense sadness and suffering, and questioning what it all means in despair? Franz Liszt does it perfectly in his epic tone poem Vallée d'Obermann, or Obermann's Valley, starting from the very first chord. It's a lot of pain and suffering here. So it's A minor 7 in the right hand, but with the F sharp as a syncopation in the left hand makes it very unstable. Especially the dissonance between the F sharp and the G. But it's resolving. At last, the E minor second inversion, another suspension on the beat. Could you pause here maybe, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm gonna pause here.
So I can. This is so meta. Me watching a video of myself. But like I can just say here that I heard this at a summer piano course in southern France, like some 10 years ago or something, and it was something with this very first chord that really struck a note with me, and like the teacher showed it also in some way. So here I'm just like living through that. What is this chord that's such a special character? And maybe we can jump to, if you go to 6:30. Okay. I will, like, because after this is a lot of like historical background and stuff. You can watch it later if you want. Okay. But here I continue with this phrase. So I started with that hook, a minute of that before the introduction part. So 6:30, you will get the rest of the phrase, which is also an interesting thing, I think.
Okay, let's play it.
This first. Yeah, okay, we get this again. Heard it now. But... And here we could resolve this phrase to the implied key of E minor if it was like this. That would settle the tonality from the start. But Liszt, instead of this, he turns immediately to somewhere else harmonically. Okay, you can pause there maybe.
D minor.
Yeah. Very cool. Anything to say about that part, or just kind of wanted to show the sort of changes in the process?
I was just thinking. So now there's some symbols that comes up, and sometimes I don't go through them all in detail. Like here, I don't mention them more. So it's a little bit. It's always hard when I do the videos to know which level I should put it on, because the audience can be very different levels.
Right. Yeah.
But I try to like not do. There's like a threshold that I don't explain, like the most basic terms, like piano and forte. I count on, you know what that is. But then I also don't go higher than, like, not too deep in the woods either.
Right. Like way too theoretical. Right. But yeah, it's an interesting level. And this raised the question too, and thank you for sharing and getting us through that. I was thinking about it, you're sharing these videos, and of course you wrote this paper, and it's also wonderful to see people just sort of, this flows out of you. You're doing this because you want to. It's not like somebody assigned you to do any of this stuff. It's great, your passion for this. How much time do you end up putting into the production of a video or writing your paper? Is it something where you put an hour in every day to the paper over the course of several weeks or months? Like, how does this stuff come together? What's the time involved?
Yeah, so the paper is very special. It's like been years in the making. I've read some books. Like I found some great book and I read it over a summer, and then next year another book. And then it was like a couple of weeks of more intense working with some chapters, and then I came back to it. So that's more special. With the videos, I started to build systems from the onset of, like, what do I need to do to get it all together. So it's like 5 stages of work. The first is learning the music as a pianist. Which is, as we said, I've done that before, like for other reasons, but that's a lot of the, like, heavy lifting of a video is already done there, because if I have played the music, I know it in the hands what it's about a lot. And then the second stage is like putting this analysis together, do a extra bit of research, like get all the years right. And I actually write a script that's really been a process. It came together. So now I know exactly what works for me, but it took, tens, and I think I've done 150 videos, something in total. So around video number 100, like, I know what works. But before that, it's a lot of some trials. But basically, the introductions are more scripted. If it's more important, exactly how I want to frame it, and then I write in bullet points. Okay, this place is this chord and this motif, how they work. And the thing is, like, I find these descriptions, like a word or a term, and I write it down. And the important thing is to write it down. Then you kind of remember it. And then I write the script and I, like, go through it before I record. And then I kind of leave it on the desk and I record and don't look at it. But the process is to write down the stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you don't actually read the script. You're kind of like playing through it from memory after rehearsals.
Yeah.
And improvising a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the introductions is a little bit different.
Okay.
And, like, I do usually 20 minutes of recording time is like the standard. After that, I get too tired in the brain. So intense to do. It's both the talking and the playing. Like, either one is fine, but it burns extra calories in a way. So like 20 minutes, then I take a pause and kind of read the next part of the script. If it's several movements or several sections of a piece, I divide it like it's 1 or 2 pages of a script.
Yeah.
And very practical matter. I realize I write the script in Word and I have the font size to 14, which is very big, but it's so I can just hold it and read it. I don't need to look at it close. It's very practical. I can recommend that.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's the third thing, recording. And that's like,
Mhm.
I have to set aside a day. And this is also something I've realized that because all the other work that I have is like accompanying a choir in the evening, maybe, or if I have a lunchtime concert, this schedule for the week is like I see which days I can fit in a recording. So that day, if I'm recording a video, I start in the morning, I go through the script the last time, and then 2 to 3 hours to set everything up and record. And then I'm tired, so I can't do it on days where I have other work too. So I burn that energy for that days, how it feels like. So okay, next stage is the editing, and that's also a lot of what do you say? I have a form in the editing software program. I have presets, you know, that I start with a lot already in place. So then, but then it's usually maybe 8, 10, 12 hours if it's like a 20-minute video, somewhere around there. And the final stage that also I didn't think of when I started, but you realize as soon as you start the YouTube game is I call it the publishing stage. So everything to make a thumbnail and make the description and like put the links out in on the channels. And I write the special update to my Patreon page with a more personal approach that I'm really happy about. Like I share, it's more an exclusive community to the Patreon, say now I have this new video, and they know, like I share monthly updates, what I'm working with in general. So you get a little extra know how it works from the Patreon side. But that's basically all the stages.
Wow. It's a lot, you know, and again, I feel like I'm just a very impressed by your passion and also appreciative that you're connecting with an audience over it because that's a lot of work and it's great to have some appreciation and some fans and you know people to resonate with. I want to take a minute and start talking about your pianos a little bit because this is our piano nerd show. So we noticed in your videos that you have a couple of different pianos that you use for the videos. Am I right? Do you have 2 pianos or do you actually have 3? And do you have one that you don't use? Is that correct?
Yeah, I actually have 3. The
and
first
these are all
one
just in
I
your
don't
personal
use at
house?
all.
You have 3 pianos?
No, so you see here, this is the upright that I have in my apartment.
Okay.
So from the first piano I had, my parents, we bought it when I was living at home and as a teenager. It's a grand piano, a Wendel and Lang, a Chinese brand. It has a very nice tone, like very loud sound and quite piercing, but very nice tone quality. But it's very heavy in the keys. And it's a bit strange that it's so hard to play. So it's really hard to like practice the fast classical stuff. And like especially it's when you hit the key from a bit from the side, it's really tough to. I don't really know why that is, but anyway, I've never recorded any videos on that.
We know why that is. We can figure that out.
Can you tell me?
Well, I mean, part of it's going to be the construction of the piano. You know, lower quality materials and angles that are slightly off and things like that. It could be part of it. But actually, that's kind of interestingly enough, this masterclass that we just did with Dean Rayburn that I mentioned up front on action geometry. So there's a couple of different aspects. The action geometry is the geometry of the action, right? The angles that the different parts interact And so you have you have basically three different levers in the piano action. One is the piano key itself because it goes up and down, right? And then you have another lever that's called the whipping, and it goes up and down. And then you have the hammer is another lever. And those three things kind of push on each other, going up and down. So you can imagine that in order to get good leverage, you have to approach things at the appropriate angle. So like if I'm going to push this and I push it like this, I'm going to get more power than if I happen to be pushing it slightly off direction. And so there can be natural issues with the actual geometry of the action, because you can imagine it's hard to get everything lined up, design it properly, have the know-how, in-house for the manufacturers to get it the way it's supposed to be. And so that can be off, and that can affect the playability, right? It's going to play like a truck is something that people say, and that can happen. For example, if the other end of the key, there's a part called the capstan, and it pushes up on this other part called the whipping. And if that capstan is not aligned very well with the whipping cushion at an angle or offset that doesn't give it optimal leverage, that can play like a truck, And then the other thing is just the regulation. Now, the regulation is a more optimistic problem. So if it's just the regulation, which is just basically
I had it. I put it in for a extensive service, so they did all that, and it didn't help. It helped a little, but not. I think it's more. Yeah, it makes sense. It's so a lot of different things inside there.
Yeah, so that's very apropos to the class that we just did. It's this action geometry. There's probably some things going on with the action geometry if they already addressed the regulation and it's still just kind of not functioning well.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I've had that for my my teenage years, but then I moved. In the academy I practiced at the school all those years. I moved away from home, and then when I graduated the masters, I started to rent a studio space. So in the beginning, I moved this Wendell and Lang grand piano there. But then I realized I wanted to have a piano in my apartment also. So I bought this upright, which is an old German brand, Rönisch.
Sure. Yeah.
That I'm very happy with.
We don't see many Rönisch in the United States, but I lived in Peru for about a year and a half, and that was a major brand that I saw in Peru, actually. There's quite a connection between Peru and Germany, so yeah.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it. They're beautiful pianos.
Yeah, very, very good. I think it's 100 years old or something, but I think it stood very still. It led a still life. It must have been, because it's very good capacity. Yeah, and then finally, only 3 years ago, in the summer of 21, I bought another grand piano.
Just a second, let me mute that.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I bought a Yamaha C3 secondhand that I found on used pianos like Craigslist in region. So I took a 2-hour drive and tested it, and I can sense there was something in the tone, but it was way too soft, the tone. Like it didn't come out, but there was some register where it came out. So there was something strange had been going on, I think. So I bought it, and then I have a piano technician I work with in Gothenburg that we have a good collaboration. So he came and looked at it, and we made a plan how much he thought we should work with it. So it took some time to do all the planning, and also piano technician seems to be busy people. So I have to book him a couple of months in advance. But in the end, he came to work 3 full days on it. So do a lot of full service and voicing of the hammers to file them down, or what do you say?
Yeah, voicing, yeah. Filing.
To get the sound out, and in the end it's really good. So that's since last
by the way, let's have a shout out to your piano technician. What's their technician's name there again? And you said he has a brother that also is the technician.
That's right. Magnus Eriksson is my technician, and his brother Bengt Eriksson, they do a lot of piano tuning and servicing in Gothenburg at the big institutions.
Wonderful. And I'll take this opportunity to share because I always love this. So we were talking about reaching an international global audience. So I've been sharing this in the emails. I don't know if people noticed we actually changed some of the statistics. But
Oh,
here's some of our rankings for the podcast. So this is in the performing arts category on Apple, and so this is basically the highest rank that we've achieved in these different countries in performing arts category, and we have actually reached number 6 in Sweden.
wow, that's amazing.
Performing arts category. Of course, this sometimes depends on the weeks, and it depends on the particular episode. But maybe on when your episode comes out, maybe we'll get a high ranking in Sweden as well. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of see the countries where you get to make connections and contact. Do you see that you are well, we'll get back to your pianos in a second, but do you see the majority of your audience? Did it start out locally? Did it actually start out in the United States? Like, can you tell? Do you look at those YouTube statistics, like who's actually keeping track of what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I took the decision to do it in English from the start. I was thinking a lot when I wanted to start something with all these things I had going on in the back of the head. But it was 2 decisions. One was, should I do audio only as a podcast? That would be easier production-wise, but I ended up choosing video to do the video too for all those reasons. Actually, I also release all the episodes as podcasts. You can find them like on Spotify because most of it works only with the audio.
Yeah.
But of course you don't see the score, so it's such a different. And then the second thing was in Swedish or in English, and it's also like Swedish would be easier for me to do, but English is much more potential. But what was the audience?
Like where are people listening, and did it start out?
So Sweden is very low because we're not a very big country. Yeah. It's basically the US and Europe, I think, is around equal. It feels like it's pretty much like OECD countries, very general.
Well, and so getting back to your piano, so you got the Yamaha C3, you did some voicing, you kind of tried to fix it up, and we gave a shout out to your piano technician. Tell us a little bit, because this is always interesting for us to understand the collaboration between you and your piano technician, and sort of deciding what to work to do, and how much to invest, and like kind of choosing the piano, and communication issues, things like that. Anything interesting to share there?
Yeah, well, it's been like a long. It's starting to feel more like we have a long working relationship. So I don't remember. It probably was bigger issues the early years, but that was like 7 years ago, 5 years ago. So I don't remember what I was thinking then so much. But I bought it myself without consulting with him, because it was the right time and for me to buy, and I found it, and it was the right range, and it felt like a good instrument. And then we realized that he could do a lot with just going over it. And then he says that I'm more interested than most other clients. So I kind of try to learn a bit what he's doing so I can do a little bit of things by myself, like some easy stuff. I leave a lot to the professionals, but so when he's tuned and done the voicing, we actually did now in January. He came again for like a half day or a day to go over it, and I think it's a good 2 years ago to do that, because I wanted to have really high quality, and I practice a lot on it, so it does well with it to be looked after in that way. But so he went over and did some adjusting, a little bit of the voicing again, like some notes changed a bit over the years.
Sure. Yeah.
But then after he's done, I I go over it, and if there's like one note I feel I can do a little bit softer, maybe I pluck a hole with a needle in the hammer. But yeah.
So you've learned a little bit of voicing techniques, and he's kind of shared that information.
Yeah, he showed
with
me
you.
a little bit. Yeah. But I'm very careful. I know it's a whole different domain that I'm a novice in. So I have a lot of respect for technicians.
Wonderful, as you should. I'm just kidding. But yeah, we often talk about on the program, I think, about the collaborative relationship between piano technicians. You can include manufacturers as well, and the musician. Really, it takes that group of folks to really make the music happen, right? And it's a different piece if you have a piano with a different technician, right? That's working on it, that can highlight things, that can bring out the sound, change the regulation on it, right? All those different things make a difference, and they contribute to the music. Looks like I have a question from Lee on YouTube. Lee on YouTube asks, what is your favorite upright piano to play? Do you have a favorite upright?
Is that for me?
Yeah, that's for you. Yeah.
Well, my answer is right now is going to be my Ronish there.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I do prefer grand quite a lot over uprights in general, because it's different mechanics of it.
Let's see if Lee has their favorite upright. See if we get Lee to tell us what their favorite upright. Maybe they have an opinion, or maybe they haven't developed one yet. But
I've also played like a new Yamaha's upright. Can be really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always surprised. Not that these are my favorites, but I'm always surprised you can't even come by these pianos anymore. They don't make them literally like they used to. These kind of very tall, almost like a bar room upright piano. So like very big, very tall. And I'm always pretty impressed. I came across quite a few of those when I was doing tunings in New York, and how great they can sound, and it makes sense because they're taller, they can have longer strings. And not necessarily a specific brand, but not bad. And saying not necessarily a specific brand, I've actually sometimes been particularly unimpressed with Steinway uprights. Sometimes the Steinway name makes you feel like it's going to be this amazing instrument, and then there can be issues with the piano, and especially from a technician's perspective, like caring for it, they're not always engineered perfectly. Lee says their favorite is a Furyk 123 Vienna. Is their favorite upright piano. Thanks, Lee.
I can't say I know that model. Mark.
Yeah. Or is it pronounced Feurig, or
I think Feurisch in German or
Feurisch.
something.
Yeah.
And I think actually they got bought up by this Chinese company that makes the Wendel and Lang grand pianos. So if you buy a new Feurisch grand, it's the same mechanic as the first piano we were talking about. But I think an upright is so it depends on the year, which brand.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about favorite pianos. Like I have an upright piano that my mother purchased when I was in high school. It's a Samick piano, and Samick is they make pretty good pianos, but it depends on the year and whoever was owning it at the time. But it always reminds me, like when we're advising someone to purchase a piano, ultimately, the brand stops mattering, the year stops mattering. All that really matters is, does this piano feel and sound good to you? Especially because you're going to have to keep it and cherish it for such a long time. And so it's a little bit less like a car where you can say, oh, I want this make and model of a car and that it's going to be great. There can be very specific pianos within a specific make and model where, oh, that's a good one. I like that one. And oh, you know what? I don't like that one. It's the same make and model, but it's a different piano. So I get that. I get why yours is your favorite piano to work on. Well, we can take about 10 more minutes here because we started a little bit late, but we'll be wrapping up pretty soon. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you about like what your plans are for the future, as you continue to develop the YouTube channel, develop your career, explore music and theory. Are you going to discover some grand unifying th theory of music, even beyond what you've already discovered?
I've already done that.
You've already done it. You did it. Okay, perfect.
Or like that's the model of well, sometimes you have thoughts coming up, so maybe there will be more writing as well, but not concrete plans for that. So I have
Well,
some.
on that note, before you go into the future, can you in a sentence or two share what your kind of final conclusion is, with your, paper that you put together on
Right.
music and what it's all about?
Yeah, but I think I can. It's like 80 pages of writing, but the general model is like, okay, you can think of it as 4 levels, and because we talk about music very differently depending on level, and I call them the constituent level, the perceptive level, the structural level, and the contextual level. So and they interact, of course, but and they kind of emerge from you start with the frequencies of like pitch and amplitude. That's the constituent level. We don't talk about music in that domain, but that's what music consists of, vibrations.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's emerging from that. You get to the perceptual level, and here is where it's important that we are like humans. We're perceptive creatures, so what we hear is we kind of evaluate that, and we hear notes and rhythms and these kind of dimensions of melody and rhythms and harmony. So that's the perceptual level, and then you kind of move up as emergent to the structural level. You get the stuff that you cannot compare because it's different points in time, and it's longer than we can keep in the mind directly. So a lot of what I do in the videos are about this, looking at the structure of the piece, both long-term structure and short-term structure. And then the context is like around it. It's a lot of different, like there's what I call the musical context and extra musical context. So like, yeah, I don't think I have fully made a coherent model fully of that, because there's so many directions going out, but it helps me to think of it in these terms.
Yeah. I mean, definitely.
That was more than 2 sentences, but
that's great. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I specifically remember I've always been a bit of like a music theory nerd and kind of like a structural nerd. And I remember that transitional period in my life, probably teenage to college years. I played the piano, I learned the basics. And, really understanding, I guess, especially when you start performing the music in front of people and seeing how they interact and engage. And there's popular music and classical music, and then there's like hip hop and jazz and all these different things. That highest level of things, you realize, oh, you know what, it matters, yes, your technique, and the chord changes, and but ultimately,
to a degree, right?
Yeah, to a degree, but ultimately, all of that really just serves the contextual level, and that really, although we can enjoy music from the sort of perceptual level and the structural level, that contextual level really supersedes everything. There's so many cultural changes at play, and a history of music, and all this stuff that comes into how we connect with and appreciate music, for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly where I end up in the last chapter. It's connected to culture at large and society and identity. It comes in, and that's where I draw the line to, because I'm only looking at the music. So from the music's perspective, where do we go from there?
So we sort of took a little sidetrack, but it's very informative. Going on to like your plans for the future, and then
Right.
And then we'll wrap it up after that. Yeah.
Yeah, so So the channel has been kind of an interesting point in time now, because I had this long list of repertoire that I talked about that I had been working on in recital programs and stuff. And then I ended up with like a list of, okay, these great composers that I love and feel that I have something to say about. I want to cover all of them and all of their piano music that is important for piano playing in general. So like you have these 15 composers, like that's all of them that we play have something unique that they have contributed in music history. So I wanted to touch on that. So I took some like a couple of pieces from all of these composers. So I wanted to finish that list basically, and it took a couple of years. But after the pandemic lifted, so 22 and 23, I kind of went down to a reduced level of production frequency, because there was a lot of musician work coming back that
Real
I
life.
wanted to take. So it kind of went down there, and this Christmas I finished that list perfectly, like what I had some idea that when I started. So now I'm kind of in a middle ground where I still want to keep doing, but this semester I'm basically doing a little bit, even less, but like bigger pieces that I'm still playing in them in programs. So it's a little bit different, but still what I'm doing. And then for the autumn is I plan to do more, experiment more. Yeah, I haven't decided on anything specific, but I'm gonna have some more time to work with this and prioritize it and try some different things. But so before that, this spring is like the big thing I'm working on right now, is to do a recording in a professional studio with Scriabin's early sonatas that I have covered some on the channel, but it's like one of my favorite composers, and I feel like I'm ready to do a proper recording. So it's another fun collaboration with a studio technician who's also a piano technician, like recently become a certified piano tuner in Sweden.
And is that the brother of the one you mentioned, or somebody else?
It's another person in Gothenburg.
Okay.
He's a
Bring
double
him
bass
into the
player.
fold. We need more
Johannes
Piano Tech
Lundberg.
Radio Hour community.
Right? Yeah. I will tip him. Johannes Lundberg. So he has a studio in central Gothenburg, and so I'm doing a couple of sessions with him, spread out over a couple of months. So next week I'm recording second sonata and the fantasy in B minor, opus 28. Everything is very hard, so I need to practice a lot. So there's also a reason for not doing as much videos right now. But basically that's the plans for the future.
Wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to it all. And I've sort of been, I wanted to say it earlier in the conversation, but I thought I'd mention it just to give you a little bit of kind of input. I heard that you mentioned that you had an actor kind of training you a little bit in your studies, right? And that around the presentation style of things. And I feel like I really do appreciate, I can tell, when you're presenting it, that you have that side of thing, like you're intentionally putting in kind of like a flourish and a personality, and trying to bring that in. And I can see you go whatever direction you need to go, but I can see you leaning into that even more, because I do appreciate it is important that it's video content, and your kind of personality, and not only your personality, but the personality that you project, like almost as a performer. That's really wonderful, and I hope it continues to develop and become more present. Yeah.
No, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, we should wrap up. It's been a wonderful session. Great to get to know you a bit better. Hopefully I'll see you in Sweden sometime. If you're ever in the States, we'll connect. And I'll just let people know where to go to find out more about you. We send people to your website, of course, and so that's sonatasecrets.com, and your name, Henrik Kilhamn .se is another place to go. And then, of course,
it's only in Swedish. The personal website I only have in Swedish right now. But yeah, the YouTube channel is probably the main point. You can find everything from there.
Wonderful. Yeah, I would just look up Sonata Secrets and probably come together. All right. Well, I will say thank you very much to everyone for joining us. This has been Piano Tech Radio Hour. We've reached the end of another musical journey. Thanks again for Henrik for joining us. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. For those of you that joined us today by signing up for this session individually, make your life more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in our member area, automatic registration for each week's new session. Sign up there at bit.ly/joinptrh. That's bit.ly/joinptrh. And then, of course, remember to go to pianotechradio.com to check out the podcast, pianotechniciansmasterclass.substack.com for the blog. And follow us on social media at Piano Tech Masterclass, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and check out that most recent masterclass on action geometry with Dean Rayburn. We'll put the link in the chat so you could check that out. So thank you again very much for joining, Henrik. Thanks for the audience for showing up. Thanks out there on YouTube. Thanks for your comments and interactions. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks so much for having me, Ethan.